Hey everybody, we're back at the Wheels Through Time Restoration Shop. The task at hand today is fitment and assembly of the 1937 Harley-Davidson Knucklehead lower end. We've got everything right here kind of laid out in front of you. Now, been an immense amount of work go into the motorcycle so far. As you guys can see, the lower end here is just loosely mocked together. I've got everything kind of cleaned up here, and even some of the fitments pre-fit. We're going to bring you guys through that real shortly, show you how an entire Harley-Davidson Knucklehead lower end works, what makes it so special. Remember, could be your motorcycle, so we're going to fill you in on exactly what's happening inside and out. First, I want to take you over to the chassis. We made some huge progress so far. Now, of course, everything was painted black. We've got wheels laced, trued, tires mounted. The transmission is actually almost complete. I'm going to take this out and show you guys exactly the genius of a Harley-Davidson 4-speed transmission. Remember, 1936 wasn't just a big year for the engine, it was a big year for the transmission too. Basically, the entire motorcycle, or Harley-Davidson and their entire product, had really been revamped into a much more modern setup. So the Harley-Davidson 4-speed transmission, this is basically finished. I've got a little bit of work to do left on the kicker cover, but I want to show you guys how the inside of a constant mesh transmission works. It's absolutely genius. This is coming from a time of the old the old sliding gear transmissions. Completely different setup here. Main shaft, counter shaft assembly here. Now, it's a 4-speed transmission. These are your shifter gates here. Each shaft, the counter shaft and the main shaft, are splined. Some of the gears are bushed and some of the gears are splined. So first and second gear cluster power through the counter shaft here. Third and fourth gear cluster power through the main shaft. So as you guys see here, we've got the sprocket. This is your main drive, main shaft right here. So as of right now, we're in neutral. You fire the motorcycle up and the main shaft spins. When you're in neutral, this is what the inside of the transmission is looking like. Now, underneath the lid of the transmission is the shift drum. So the shift drum here is actually what makes everything work inside. It's what slides you into first gear in and out, slides you into second, third, and fourth. So really neat setup. And as you can see, you've got these shifter dogs here, and as that drum would turn, you'll slide one into first gear. Now everything's spinning. You've got I think maybe it's about a 260-to-1 ratio right there in first gear. And then as you move into second gear, shifter dog slides over to the other side. You're still powering through the counter shaft there. So these are bushed gears. The shifter dog is splined and rides on the splined counter shaft cluster there. So you're in second gear. Now as you make it into third, you slide back into in between first and second there, and the third gear shifter fork slides over into third. Now you're running at about a I think we set this one up with a 135-to-1 ratio, so very nice setup. Spins free as a bird and into fourth gear. When you're fourth gear on a Harley-Davidson 4-speed, it's a 1-to-1 setup. So as you spin, one rotation of the main shaft equals one rotation of the rear sprocket. So little bit of work left to do on this. I'm going to set it back into neutral here, and we'll just leave this over on the lift, reinstall it into the motorcycle real shortly. Now, everything so far, guys, again, like I said, incredible amount of work to get to this point. All the sheet metal's been fit. All of the paint is out at the painters, and we're making really good progress. I just got a phone call yesterday that all the black's ready. So you're talking handlebars, oil tank, floorboards, headlight. So lots of stuff is all in the motions on this. Now we're on to the lower end. When everything's out at paint, gives me a really good opportunity to clean house, clean the tables off, and work on the lower end. So incredibly precision stuff here. Most of the fitment on the lower end is as crucial can be. A lot of this stuff is fit down to the 1,000th of an inch. First thing we've got here, now I've got the cases loosely bolted together. All this is going to come back apart and get washed up really nicely and then reassembled. But lower end, it all starts with the crank. So we've got a pair of 61 cubic inch standard Harley-Davidson flywheels right underneath. You can actually see underneath the baffle plates here. Flywheels are all cleaned up. Rod fitment is absolutely perfect. So you've got your male and female rod, a little bit of wiggle on the front, the male rod, and that female rod just has the tiniest little bit of back and forth. So rods are fit absolutely perfectly. We do all that right here on the Sun and Hone. New wrist pin bushings also fit just perfect to about the 1,000th of an inch. So when you get the crank together, the next thing to do is true that crank. The crank's been trued. Each of these shafts, now you got the pinion shaft here. The pinion is what drives the cam. It drives the oil pump. The pinion shaft is fit to about a 1/1000th of an inch on this one, and our pal Ken trued the sprocket shaft also right to the 1/1000. So this is about as good as you can get, 1/2 of a thousandth of an inch. Everything's set up. So as you can see, this crank spins absolutely beautifully in the cases. There's no resistance, falls to the heavy spot. Now we've also balanced the crank for our standard bore pistons. We're going to be doing a whole top end show a little bit later on, so you guys can kind of see what makes the top end of the Knucklehead such a special piece of engineering, and really what goes into one of our motors here at Wheels Through Time. So once the crank is trued and balanced, we can start to assemble the engine cases. Next fitment is the flywheel end plate. So that's these flywheels floating inside the cases back and forth. Now again, really crucial stuff here. Too tight of a fit and you can bind things up, start to build some heat into the engine, and it can actually lock on you. Too loose and you're just going to wear parts out too fast. So I believe spec is about 12 to 16 thousandths of an inch. We've got our flywheel end plate tool right here, and I've got, what's this out here, is the 13 thousandth of an inch feeler gauge, and it slides. We check it in kind of all the different places here. We've got right just perfect, probably 13, 14 thousandths, so that puts us right in the middle of spec, right where we want to be. So all to the cam chest here. This is where everything really ties together, and it's part of the genius of the Harley-Davidson Knucklehead engine. Now I'm going to loosely kind of bolt things together here so you guys can get an idea of how it all spins and how it all works. Again, spline pinion shaft here. The first pieces that go together are actually the oil pump. Now the Harley-Davidson dry sump oiling system for the Knucklehead was the revolutionary piece of engineering that really set this motorcycle apart from everything else that was being produced during that time. Put us into a whole new modern era. This little oil pump right here does absolutely everything. Now it all works off a mechanically timed breather here. The mechanically timed breather, as you can see, there's a window here that allows you to pressure to exchange from the up and down of the pistons here. So as those pistons vacate, they create a draw. As the pistons come down, that breather window opens and actually helps pump oil throughout the engine. So the dry sump oiling system right here, you've got your feed pump gears and scavenge pump gears. Remember, you're coming from a period of total loss oil system. It just metered it down a little bit at a time. A lot of these engines right here, guys, base minimum oiling. They were designed to run on about 3 ounces in the lower end, dripped just a little bit at a time based off engine speed. The Harley-Davidson dry sump oil system for the Knucklehead, revolutionary, pressurized oil throughout the entire engine. Actually, one of the really neat things, the cam cover here is actually a big part of the oiling system, and what you've got is oil being fed right in to the pinion here. So as you can see, as this cam cover fits on, the pinion gear, actually, now we do it a little bit differently here at the museum. There's a hole in that pinion gear, and this is what we call timed oiling. Okay, there's a hole at the pinion gear. It's drilled all the way through, lubricates the pinion, the bearing inside, excuse me. Flywheels are drilled from taper to taper, and then also the crank pin is drilled. So This oil pump through the cam cover and through the pinion gear spits oil all the way to the crank pin, to the connecting rods. It's the heart of the engine, one of the most abused parts of an engine. Harley-Davidson at this point decided, you know what, we're going to pressure feed it right there and then allow it to circulate throughout. So on top of that, the cam cover also has a fitting right here on the back, and this pumps oil all the way to the top. So pressurized oil to the rocker boxes, to the valve guides, to the valve springs. Valve guides, or excuse me, the valve spring cups actually allow everything to collect in the bottom, and it's vacuumed back down to the push rod tubes. Back down through the push rod tubes, through the tappet blocks, back into the sip cavity, then back to the oil tank. It's absolutely genius. So as we get everything kind of dialed in here, I'm going to leave the oil pump off for the time being because we've got the gasket soaking here. You spray some High Lamar gasket sealer on there. It's kind of a one and done type of thing. So in the meantime, I'm going to get some stuff kind of pre-fit for you. Oil pump drive gear slides all the way in. You've got a spacer here and a spring. Now, crucial fit on your pinion gear. You want this pinion gear to slide absolutely just perfectly. No back and forth play on the spline. Remember, when you're putting your cam cover on here, the fit of this pinion gear against the bushing is actually your seal for your oil pressure. So if guys don't have this fit here just right, you're going to be losing oil pressure. You're not going to get oil to the pin. You're not going to get oil to the top end. So all the fitment here is absolutely crucial. So once we get the pinion gear on, now you're working with timer gears and idler gears. Okay, so timer gear slides right in and drives off the pinion. This is your Harley-Davidson timer. Now, we haven't built the timer out, still got to install the points and the condenser, but as the timer sits in right here, let me slide a bolt in there to keep it from spinning. As your timer drives off of the crank, you've got kind of a 2-to-1 ratio. So guys, remember, 4-stroke engine, every cylinder fires every other rotation. So this is the lobe, or the rotor, I should say. Let's see where we at there. Oh, there we go. And you can see everything spinning. Small lobes the front cylinder, big lobes the back cylinder. So breather gear's installed, timer gear actually installed also. Now we've got the cam. Now I've got the cam end play. Remember, everything is enclosed here. So back and forth motion, all the fits are crucial. We've got the cam fit to about 6/1000ths of an inch. It's all determined with the little shim here. They make them in different sizes. I've had the cam cover on and off about 5 or 6 times with this, so got the cam fit right where we want. We've got to do it, of course, with the gasket on. So gasket, this particular gasket's probably about 15/1000ths of an inch, and it has to be installed when you factor in your cam end plate. If you do it without the gasket and you put that cam cover back on, it's going to be way loose. You're going to be wearing out your lifters. So idler gear right here. Okay, we've actually got idler gear spacers. Now the Harley-Davidson generator, model 32E generator, came out in 1932. This is what supplies the charge to the battery. It's what powers your headlights. Ingenious little setup. It slides right in this way. Generator strap to set your or to lock that in place. It's also held with 2 screws from the cam cover. Now the generator itself takes a shim. Again, fitment is incredibly crucial. So you've got paper shims, you've got metal shims. We were actually fitting this, and believe it or not, metal shim is a little bit more gear lash than I would like to see. So what we're going to do is probably what I'd like to see is to do it with the paper gasket, but as you can see, we've got just a little bit of back and forth end play there, so sounds just about right. And that's very much the Harley-Davidson lower end, guys. So as you spin this here, we can drop some tappet blocks in also. You guys can get a real clear visual of exactly what's happening when this motor is spinning round and round. So we'll leave the gaskets off. I'm going to be momentarily taking a lot of the stuff over to the sink, washing everything off, and setting up the lower end for absolute final assembly. So we are not too far away. I've already rebuilt the lifters with brand new Jim's Machining rollers. They make the absolute best stuff in the industry. It's the neat thing about these engines is, as old as they are, there's still a great network of people and companies out there supplying some incredible parts to make these things run again. So we've actually got original Harley-Davidson bearing cages, original Harley-Davidson bearings, new Jim's sprocket shaft and crank pin. It's actually an original pinion shaft. Always nice when you can deal with original parts if possible. The cam in this one is actually a Lineweber cam. Jimmy Lineweber's been grinding Knucklehead hot rod cams all the way back to probably to the 1950s. This example is a replacement for a stock cam, so nothing radical. It's going to start easy. It's going to run really well through the RPM range, and ought to make for one really nice, slick engine. So as you guys can see here, let's see if we can get everything together, and then as it all spins, we've got, oh, beautiful. Probably need to tighten down that gear, and you know what? Once we put the clips and spacers in, mount that generator, get it all tightened down, this thing is going to be spinning as slick as you can imagine. So 1937 Harley-Davidson Knucklehead, guys. I'm going to get to assembling. Got plenty of work left to do today. Thanks for tuning in. We got more shows coming to you. Chassis coming together. Really excited with how the paint's turning out. I got some photos yesterday. Get this lower end done, and I can take you to the top end show here next. Get that motor finally assembled. We'll be hooking up driveline, bolting on gas tanks, fenders, and riding this thing down the road in no time. And there you have it, guys. What a beautiful Harley-Davidson Knucklehead lower end. Looks like everything but a check ball or two in the oil pump. And set that timer up, set the points, go ahead and time the bike. We'll probably wait until we get the top end on to time it. But, moment of truth. Oh, here we are, man. That is one slick lower end. Look at those lifters moving up and down. You can see it all working. Beautiful 1936 to 9 smoothie cam cover, early Knucklehead oil pump, beautiful early tappet blocks, just the first few years of production. Beautiful 32E generator rebuilt by Dale Cashman. Yeah, we got some timer work to do. Mount the pistons, rings, cylinders, build the heads. This is going to make for one sweet motor, guys. Raffle Bike 2022, 1937 Harley-Davidson Knucklehead. Good luck. Get your chances.